Hi, welcome to the first online session of the Columbia River Nature Journal Club for 2023. Our topic tonight is ducks, and the question we're going to be exploring is what are the two broad categories of ducks and how do we tell them apart? So we're going to be looking at local inland late winter ducks as our example. And for those of you joining on the recording, if you're not from around here, local to Washington, Oregon, kind of along the I-5 corridor. And yeah, so the format for these online workshops is going to be a welcome and introductions, a short presentation about the topic, some warm-up exercises, and then a longer observation exercise. After that, we're going to share and then do a quick wrap-up. And the recorded portion of these is just going to be the the information sharing and the observation exercises so that we can preserve folks' privacy. So we won't be sharing the introduction portion or the sharing at the end in the recording. So, and I'm recording these so folks who aren't able to join us live will be able to get the content anyway. A lot of the times these Zoom sessions are going to support the in-person sessions that we have later in the month with information or something that relates to the topic. Not always, but we're going to try. So this month is ducks because we're going to the Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge on Friday the 24th of February. And hopefully you'll be able to join us there. So just a few things before we get started. First, I wanted to state that it's my intention that the Columbia River Nature Journal Club is a safe, supportive, and inclusive learning community. As an older cis white autistic woman, I'm still learning how to be an ally. And I know I have blind spots. I'll probably make mistakes, but I want folks to know that all people are welcome here. All ages from all walks of life. This includes and isn't limited to people of all races and ethnicities, all sexual orientations and genders, all economic levels, and all ability levels. If you perceive a barrier in our group or in our experiences, please let me know so I can find a way to remedy it. Yeah, I'll leave it there. So I also want to acknowledge that a part of nature journaling for me is to find ways to contribute to the ongoing stewardship of the places that we visit. In that light, I want to honor the land as well as the original and ongoing caretakers of where I'm calling in from today, the Chinook Nation. In acknowledging the original people of the regions where we recreate, it's important that we also recognize that many of them were forced or tricked off their lands by the early American government who sought those spaces for European settlers. So here at the mouth of the Columbia River, the Chinook people signed treaties back in 1851, but the documents were never ratified, and so the American government refuses to grant federal recognition to the tribe. As a result, the tribe doesn't receive the funding and access to traditional spaces that they were promised, yet they still lost their land. So there's ways to support your local tribes wherever you live. Here in Chinook country, there are opportunities to donate directly to the tribe or through a program like Amazon Smile or the Fred Meyers Rewards Program. You can also support tribes by buying products from Native American businesses and volunteering for the tribe. So check out your local tribe's website to learn how you might help, because every group is different. So our topic tonight, ducks. What makes a duck a duck? So a duck is a bird within the Anatidae or duck family. These include all the animals commonly referred to as ducks, as well as the geese and the swans. So these birds can easily be identified by their external characteristics, their wide, flat bills, waterproof feathers, and webbed feet. Their beak shapes do vary from species to species. Like in the picture here, you see the extra wide bill of the shovelers. And then this other bird is also a duck. It's in the merganser family or group. And the mergansers have really narrow bills, so they don't look so much duck. They don't look as duck-like as the other ducks. But for the most part, most ducks have that round edge shape we're familiar with in our domestic ducks, like this hybrid here in the picture. Duck contour feathers, that outer layer of feathers that have the colors and that you see when you look at the bird, These are especially adapted to zip more tightly together than other birds. So they not only do ducks have more feathers per square inch, but they also have more barbules in each feather. And the barbule it's kind of like Velcro, if you can imagine the hook and weave of a Velcro. So those barbules are what link the feathers together and help make them airtight. And then ducks also have an extra large oil gland at the base of their tail, which is what birds use to condition their feathers. And that oil gland also helps to make the feathers water repellent. And so it's actually animals in the duck group or the duck family spend a significant portion of each day preening their feathers to help keep them airtight. So this family contains about 150 species that live on every continent except Antarctica. They've been around, so ducks as we know them have been around for at least 25 million years. That's about 15 million years longer than hominids have been around. As I mentioned, there's 150 species worldwide. This includes the geese and swans. And in the Pacific Northwest, we have about 27 species of ducks. And of those, 7 are saltwater species, so I'm not going to be including them tonight. And in fact, we're just going to focus on 8 birds tonight that you're most likely to see when we visit the refuge on the 24th. And some of these birds you're not going to see it all in the summertime because they migrate north, and some of them you will see, but we're focusing on birds that you can see in February at the National Wildlife Refuge. So let's get started. Our first is the mallard, and this is the most familiar and widespread duck in the Northern Hemisphere. These birds can be found just about any place that fresh water has gathered. I mean, literally, I have seen them in puddles in lawns on a rainy day. But in general, you're most likely to see them in lakes, ponds, open sloughs, or along the edges of estuaries, which is areas where salt and fresh water meet. Males have bright green head that iridesces blue-green, so they can look different colors depending on the angle of the light. They also have orange legs and a yellow bill. The females are brown, and they have an orange bill and orange legs. And you'll notice there's a little bit of blue on the female here in the picture. That's called, oh dear, I forgot the word. Anyway, that's also a distinguishing characteristics of the mallards. So if you see a brown duck, a hen, and that isn't blue, that section of the wing feathers isn't blue, it's probably like a gadwall or some other species. Mallards are they're also our largest duck that we have here. So the northern pintail is another common duck. They're often found in flocks, occupying open water on the edges of bays and lakes and estuaries, as well as in marshy areas. The males have that dark brown head with that lovely stripe that runs up the side of the neck, and in their breeding plumage, they have that really lovely long tail feather. The females are a lighter color brown, so if you were to compare them to a hen mallard, the hen mallard's a darker brown color. So lighter brown colored feathers, and you'll see that her bill is dark, kind of a dark gray. The northern shoveler are distinctive for their broad bills, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation. The males, like the mallard, they have that kind of dark green head. It's easy to confuse the mallard and the shoveler males because of that dark head, but the chest on the mallard is brown, and the back and the wings are a gray, whereas you can see on the shoveler the chest is white. So that's a way to tell them apart, aside from the large bill. Also, the shoveler's head, you can see in all 3 pictures of the males here, that's all the same bird. And so in that top center picture, his head looks black, and then a certain angle of light looks green, another angle of light looks blue. With the mallard, you don't ever get that kind of black look. So that's another difference. The females got similar coloration to the hen mallard, but the bill is a giveaway. It's just so much larger. Let's see, what else did I want to say? Oh, the These birds prefer shallow marshy areas, like right up against the edges of lakes and ponds. We're like in the cattail kind of area of the lakes. So you'll see them pretty close to shore. The American widgeon are often seen in large flocks, just like the pintails. They can be found in estuaries, freshwater lakes and ponds, and grassy fields. This is one of the species, like the mallard, that you have a good chance of seeing them actually on land. A lot of the other ducks prefer to stay in the water. So the typical male widgeon has a gray cheek patch and then that large green band that runs from the eye to the base of the neck, and then kind of a white mohawk, white forehead down the back of the head. Right. So the in the upper right hand corner, the males can sometimes have a color variation where the cheeks are the same color as the forehead, right? So it looks like the whole head is white with that large green band from the eye to the base of the neck. And these are often referred to as a storm widgeon. And then if you see a widgeon that has its face is a rusty color, like in the upper left of the three or of the top pictures, that's actually a different species. That's the Eurasian widgeon, and they are not common, but you can see them every once in a while, so keep an eye out for that as well. They're not so rare that it's a big deal if you see one in the birding community, but they are, it is pretty fun to see. If you're a bird watcher and you like looking at ducks, every once in a while you'll spot an Eurasian widgeon. The hens are brown. Their sides are a little more towards the red color than a hen mallard. They're also smaller, and their bills look like they've been painted with a light gray or a blue gray paint. That's a way to tell the hens from the mallard hens. All right, so our next bird is the green-winged teal. And these are kind of, the males can be they look a little similar to a Eurasian widgeon. So they have that rusty colored head, and then they have that eye stripe that can look blue or green depending on the angle of light. And but they're also very small. This is one of our smallest ducks. And so if you see really small ducks really close to shore in large flocks and they all have the red head like that, then you're probably looking at green-winged teal. And the females, they're kind of a drab grayish brown color, so a little more gray than the hen mallards. I mentioned they like to congregate in large flocks, and you're going to see them more often right on the edges. They really love mud flats, and they do come out onto land, like onto mud flats, and they'll muck around. Mucking is like what you see the hen doing here, where they put their bill into the water or into the mud, and they shake it back and forth. They're basically kind of filtering out organisms to eat. So it's a form of, it's a feeding method that they use. So I can't remember now if I said this, but they like estuaries and freshwater habitats. All right, our next bird is the ring-necked duck, and these are darker than the other birds that we've seen. You see the male, and the male has a black head, black wings, a black chest. The female is a dark brown color. A real distinguishing characteristic of these birds is they have that white ring around the end of their bill, and you can see it in both sexes. You're going to see these animals in freshwater lakes, ponds, and sloughs, but they're going to be out in the deeper area. You don't see them close to shore so much unless there's a steep area close to shore or a deep area close to shore. Our next bird is the bufflehead, and this is our other smallest duck. They're really, really small compared to everybody else. The males are really obvious. They stand out because of their really crisp black and white markings. And the female is also pretty easy to identify, though she's harder to see because of her coloration. But she's got a dark head and dark wings, and then that white eye spot. It's not really an eye spot because it's more of a cheek, like a little white cheek patch. And these birds like to be out in the open water. They They're out in the open water of lakes and estuaries, large rivers, and coastal waters. So you'll actually see them out on the ocean as well. And yeah, okay. I have a little more to say about, but I'll tell you about them more later. So our final duck for today is the hooded merganser. So there's three kinds of mergansers in our region, but the hoodie is the one you're most likely to see at the refuge. Our other two are common merganser and red-breasted merganser. Red-breasted merganser you only ever see on saltwater or estuaries, like salt fresh mix. You're not going to see them inland. And the common merganser likes freshwater, but I don't think they're quite as common out here. They like flowing like water, like rivers. And so you'll see them more in areas with, like on the Columbia, right? As opposed to in the ponds at the refuge. So our hooded merganser this is actually one of my favorite birds. All the mergansers have a crest, a really obvious crest that they can raise or lower. And you can see that in these birds here. These are the same birds with their crests up and their crests down. And they can look like different animals if you're not accustomed to looking at them. So that's kind of a fun thing about them. They're also pretty easy to see because they like kind of enclosed places. So you're going to look for these animals. If you're at the refuge, you're going to look in like the sloughs, the little tiny ponds that have lots of shrubs around them or trees. And you can see them in open areas as well, but in my experience, I see them more frequently in areas that are kind of covered and protected. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you about these? Okay, I think that was everything about those. So going back to our question, what are the two big groups of ducks? And basically it comes down to their feeding strategy, right? So you've got the dabblers and you've got the divers. Sometimes the dabblers are called pond ducks. And the reason for that is that they are, you're going to see them feeding in shallow water. If they feed off the bottom, they also feed along the edges. So they're eating invertebrates and they're eating plant material, like seeds and roots and things like that. So these birds on the left are the dabblers in our group. So that was the mallard, the widgeon, the pintail, the green-winged teal, and the shoveler. And then our divers, these are birds that are going underwater to eat, to hunt down fish and invertebrates. And depending, if you're out on the coast, you're looking at the coastal ducks, they also eat shellfish and like clams and snails. But these ones, these birds also eat like freshwater clams and such. But anyway, I digress. So back to this. So these are our three divers from the group, and so this is what you're going to be seeing when you're looking at a dabbler feeding, right? A lot of the time, most of the time, they're going to be with their tail up in the air and their heads submerged as they're eating along the bottom of the pond or lake or wherever they're at. Sometimes if the substrate under the water is deep, you'll see them splashing like this mallard in the center. And then other times you'll see them on shore like the hen teal we were looking at earlier, where they're dabbling or mucking in the water and in the mud. And I've actually seen them sometimes swimming along the surface and just kind of filter feeding off the surface as well. Our divers, on the other hand, you're going to see them going under the water and then coming back up with food if they've been successful. So these are different birds. I just wanted to kind of show you the progression of what it looks like when they dive. They will actually lift their chest out of the water and arc their body to dive in head first. And as they're doing that, they tuck their legs up against their body, up towards the front of their body. And then when they get submerged, when they get their torso submerged, they kick their legs out to help propel them underwater. All of the divers that we're looking at today keep their wings in tight when they dive, and they use their legs to maneuver underwater. Some of the coastal birds, the scoters, for example, we have 3 species of scoter duck, and they'll use their wings to help propel themselves under the water. But these birds here today, they're just using their feet. And something interesting that now our dabbler ducks, they can force their bodies underwater, but when they do so, it makes a big disturbance on the surface. It looks like somebody did a belly flop. When the divers dive, they're very efficient divers, and they'll just leave a small ripple. That's why I added that picture. They'll leave a small wake on the surface. And if you see it soon enough, you can see there's two little mounds where their feet pressed against the water and kind of made boils at the surface. I thought that was cute. And then if they're lucky, um, they'll come back with some animal that they're going to eat. And in this case, the hooded merganser has a gunnel, which is a type of fish that looks like an eel. You can often find them under rocks in the intertidal zone. This is a picture taken on in Olympia, I believe. Okay, so another difference between these birds, aside from the feeding strategy, which is the main characteristic, a couple other differences that are a lot more subtle are buoyancy and lake position. So our dabbling ducks are, the way I think of it is they're like corks, right? They're designed to float. And so their bodies will rest a little bit higher on the surface of the water. And this isn't the best picture, but I couldn't find a good one with a diver and a dabbler side by side. But if you look at the widgeon on the left, you can start to see the curve of his chest as it bends down towards his belly. So he's riding up high enough where you can start to see his chest curve down to his belly. Whereas the two mergansers here, you can see that they're low enough that the curve towards the belly is underwater with those two birds. And then another difference, the other difference that's very subtle is leg position. And I only have 2 photographs of diving ducks out of the water. This was the best one. It was actually a group of mergansers standing on shore. So it's sort of the same angle as the mallard here. And honestly, I can't see the difference in the leg placement. But the divers, their legs are actually farther back in their body, which makes it easier for them to dive and to swim underwater. But it changes their balance when they're on land. And so they actually have to hold their front torso up higher. It takes a little more effort for them. They're not as well balanced over their hips as the dabbler ducks, which is probably why you don't see them out of the water very often. Another difference that's a lot easier to see is how they take off from the water. Because the dabblers, I forgot to mention this in the buoyancy, but the diving ducks' bodies are a lot more dense, right? They're much more compact, designed to be efficient underwater. Dabblers don't have that issue, right? So they could have all the bulk that they want, basically, because and be as round and fluffy as they want, because they don't have to move that under the water. So one of the trade-offs that diving ducks have for their underwater efficiency is that their wings are smaller, and so it's more difficult for them to take off. So a puddle duck, a dabbler, they're able to launch themselves right off the surface of the water, which is what this widgeon is doing in the upper photograph. Diving ducks, like the bufflehead down below, it takes them a long runway. If there's no wind, it takes them a long runway to get airborne off the water. I've actually seen bufflehead stranded in small ponds because there wasn't enough length for them to get up the lift that they needed to get out of the pond. And so they had to wait for a windy day so they could use the wind to help lift themselves up. In general, you're more likely to see diving ducks in deeper open water, but you will occasionally see them in close to shore too, if there's food there. Excuse me. I have seen hooded mergansers working right along the edge of the shore in an intertidal zone, and it was in a rocky intertidal, so there was a lot of invertebrates and small fish in the rocks, hiding in the rocks there. And so the water was so shallow that they couldn't dive, and they were basically acting like dabbler ducks, were just sticking their head under the water to hunt. but in general, you're going to see these birds in areas where there's deeper water so that they can get under the water. Dabblers forage in shallow water, on mud, and some of the species on land. So in this top picture, this is a flock of widgeon, and you see they're working in the water and on the grass there. Mallards and green-winged teal are some other species that you might see working on land. But for the most part, the rest of the ducks you're going to see just in the water when they're feeding. So that was kind of a whirlwind overview of 8 different species of ducks. And what we're going to do now for the next 10 minutes or so is some gesture sketching to warm up. And this can also be, so when I do nature journaling, I like to focus on observations, not drawing, because it's not about a picture. It's about capturing information. It's about paying attention and capturing information on the page. So I'm using the gesture sketching exercise here, but you don't have to draw. You're welcome to use words or whatever kind of marks make sense to you. But the idea is to capture the most poignant information in the small amount of time. So in this activity, we're going to, there's going to be an image of a duck or one of the birds up on the screen for 60 seconds. And in that 60 seconds, the goal is to get you to loosen up and to capture some kind of a rendition of that bird. If you think of the game Pictionary, in Pictionary, you have, I think, about a minute. It's been a while since I played. You have a very short period of time to relay a piece of information in a sketch format for your other teammates to interpret. And so you're going for some key characteristics. And so that's what I want you to think about in this activity. Like, what are the key characteristics that I can capture to give a sense of this creature? So I'm going to give you just a little bit of time here to gather your materials. And if you're doing the sketches, you're going to want paper that you can do 10 images on. And typically if you're doing the gesture sketching, these are sort of like it's almost like blind contour. We have 60 seconds, so you'll have plenty of time to look back and forth between the image and your drawing. But think of it as you're not trying to make an accurate picture. And I put some examples up here of gesture sketches of crows that I did. Let's see. Okay, well, I'll be quiet for a second here so you can get your materials. I just realized that you can pause the recording. So if you haven't gotten your stuff ready yet, go ahead and pause. And then when you do, you can start up again. So this when I click to the next slide, we should be, we'll be doing 60 seconds on each picture. So here we go. All right. Oh, deep breath. How was that? I hope you enjoyed that observation, the timed observation practice. So we're going to do a longer observation now, and I'm going to leave this slide up for 10 minutes, and then you can choose. You can do this however you want, whatever works best for you. If you want to choose one image and really deep dive on that and make your observations on just one of these pictures, you can do that. If you want to do all four, you're welcome to do that, or any mix. Or if you don't like any of these and you want to find something on the internet somewhere else, you're welcome to do that. But we're going to take 10 minutes to do a deeper observation, and yeah, and then we'll get back together in that. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay. I'll let you get your last line or word or color. All right. So that's a wrap for the recorded part of our session. But before we leave this, I just wanted to thank you for being here today. It was really a joy to get to share my passion for ducks with you. Yeah, they're one of our favorite things to do in our family is to go watch ducks. So it was great to spend some time here with you tonight, sketching, making observations. So if you haven't joined our club, if you're local to the Columbia River area, kind of the section, I envision the section of the Columbia that's affected by the tides, right? So that's kind of the area that this group serves. Consider joining our group on Facebook. It's Columbia River Nature Journal Club. And otherwise, you're welcome to check out this channel. We'll be doing this once a month. And as long as all the information is shareable, I'll be sharing it on the recording. So let's see, what else do I want to say? I guess just again, thank you. I hope that this was a pleasurable experience for you tonight, and I hope to see you again soon. So, all right, that's it. Take care.